Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves. By Crumb, it's finally here. That's right, all you minties. This is the Uncanny Omar, and join me for my overview of the Conan the Barbarian, the original Comics Omnibus Volume 2 from Titan Comics and Heroic Signatures. So let's go ahead and get started. That's right, the Sumerian is back. Conan the Barbarian, the original Comics Omnibus Volume 2, is finally here. And before I go any further, a big thank you to the folks at Titan Comics and Heroic Signatures for sending us a copy of this book. This book has had a lot of delay issues. I mean, of course, the normal delay that we've had for about a year or so. But then there was a couple of weeks that it was supposed to come out, and then distributions, for some reason, didn't get it out in time. Volume 3 came out first, then Volume 2 and 3 of Savage Sword came out. But here it finally is. And this, what we're looking at here, is the standard edition cover. On the left-hand side is your direct market cover. Again, the direct market cover is only available at places like cheapgraphicnovels.com, waltzcomicshop.com, bdcosmos.com, comicsbugle.com, readcomics.com, diarycollectors.com, organicpricebooks.com, InStock Trades, Tales of Wonder, DCBS, and of course your local comic book store. But everything underneath the dust jacket is the same, so let's take a closer look at this. Now, this is the new printing. This was previously printed by Marvel Comics. As a matter of fact, here it is next to my Marvel Comics printing. That's the standard edition cover by Del Keown. And just to kind of give you an example of the differences, but let's look at the difference in the spines. You have the Marvel Omnibus logo, the Conan the Barbarian, the original Marvel years, where over here you have Conan the Barbarian, the original Comics Omnibus. Roy Thomas, John Buscema, Gil Kane, and then Volume 2, and then of course that image of Conan. I'm going to go ahead and tell you why this looks thicker, and that's because the paper stock they're using for Volume 3, or I'm sorry, Volume 2 of the Titan Comics and Heroic Signatures, it's actually thicker than the paper stock they used here. The binding was also a little bit tighter over here. I know, because I thought, wait a second, this paper feels thicker. It's thicker than what they used for Volume 1 and 3. And I'm not sure if that's just a one-off or if they're going to continue using this printer in that paper stock. The Hour of the Dragon is the Hour of Conan in big, bold letters. Where over here, the Hour of Conan is now. It's interesting that they changed that. And then the parental advisory over here, Heroic Signatures, Titan Comics, the Marvel logo. And here you'll have the suggested for mature readers, what it collects. And of course, this image of books that are in here. And then underneath the dust jackets, we have Conan the Barbarian. Again, it's a little bit more faded out over here in the Titan Heroic Signatures, but that's looking about the same. And then, of course, the emblem in the back right here with the blood splatter. And let's look at the flaps. Conan the Unconquerable, and then a little bio on the creators over here, including Roy Thomas, Big John Buscema, and Gil Kane. And it is the same bio that you have over here. All right, so we'll do a little internal comparison here in a bit, but let's go ahead and crack this omnibus open and talk just a little bit about the stories found in here and show off some of this great artwork. All right, let's go ahead and crack this omnibus open. We have the end sheets, which I love that they added through this book. In these new printings, we have Red Sonja right there with Conan the Barbarian, Roy Thomas, John Buscema, Gil Kane. A little bit of the behind the scenes, the folks from Heroic Signatures and Titan Comics over here. And then, of course, the special thanks, because we do have a lot of artwork that had to be scanned. Here are your top billings with Roy Thomas, Big John Buscema. So this is that era of Big John taking over the book from Barry Windsor Smith. Not easy footsteps to follow or big shoes to fill. What's the saying? Yeah, whatever, doesn't matter. Gil Kane, of course, doing some of the artwork. Neil Adams, who a lot of people, if you look at the letter pages, had apparently wanted him to be one of the artists on the book. You have inkers like Ernie Chan and Dick Giordano. Neil Adams inking his own, lettering by Joe Costanza. and Gaspar Saladino, and then Glenn Sween and Petra Goldberg doing some of the coloring. And then over here is your table of contents, looking very similar to that of Marvel's. And this book collects Savage Sword of Conan 1, 8, and 10. Stay with me. And Conan the Barbarian 27 through 51, and Annual Number 1, and Giant Size Conan 1 through 4. The book has 856 pages and retails for $125. Stay with me because I know what you're thinking. Wait a second, Savage Sword of Conan, didn't we already get that? Yes, there's tiny little double dip with the Savage Sword of Conan Omnibus Volume 1, and that's because those stories kind of carry over into Conan the Barbarian. They're not recolored, they're still in the black and white, so that is something to keep in mind. As a matter of fact, in this wonderful introduction by Roy Thomas, he talks about that, what stories carry over, and of course, how he always wanted to work with Big John, how Big John was the guy he wanted to draw Conan the Barbarian. And oh my gosh, this introduction is wonderful. I would suggest reading the stories first, though, because he kind of breaks down some of the stories through here. But the behind the scenes is just amazing. Here is a map of the Hyborian Age, and we kick it off with issue 27 of Conan the Barbarian, The Blood of Belhazar, or Belhazar, rather. So by now, Roy Thomas talks a little bit about this, how he is not only adapting Robert E. Howard's Conan the Barbarian stories, but other people's Conan the Barbarian stories. Like this, for example, is a story from a non-Conan story by Robert E. Howard, and it is adapted by Roy Thomas and John Buscema. So when he ran out of adaptations from Robert E. Howard, he started borrowing from other creators that were not Robert E. Howard, and we'll talk a little bit about those here in a little bit. But this one was an adaptation of a non-Conan story by Robert E. Howard, kind of like how he came up with Red Sonja. She was an adaptation of a completely different character. And to me, I love stories like this. I like when he is borrowing elements from a lot of other different Conan writers. And then he starts doing his own things. Like over here, we see him fighting the monster of Zimbabwe. First, he has to chop off that snake's head. And there's always some kind of damsel in distress through here. I do love the fact, I think it's in this volume when he rescues the lady and she's crying and he's like, "Don't cry for Mitra's sake. The worst is over. Crom, I'll never understand women." I was reading this when Melanie was sitting next to me and I was quoting Conan. And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "I was just quoting Conan. Look." So I had to show her that. And it's just a funny, taken out of context page. But that does happen quite often. Towards the very beginning of this volume, you do see him going through different lands. You do see him return to the Turan, so a country that kind of built who he was. And he comes in at a different age, and that's the beauty of Conan the Barbarian, and something I've always stressed is that you can pick up any of these volumes, Volume 2, Volume 10, Volume 9, Volume of Savage Sword of Conan, like 5, and they all kind of stand alone. Yes, there's reoccurring characters that show up through here, but it shows Conan at different ages. This is the woman at the bottom of the sea right here that tries to take him under. And so there are stories in here that he is adapting Howard's non-Conan stories into Conan, and it tries to fit them in there, but it's interesting because they're like different types of countries that we hadn't seen in the world of Conan yet, and he kind of just throws them out there. But because Conan is at a different age in these stories, it kind of fits in. So yes, Big John Buscema is now the main artist on the book. There's a lot of splash pages and double page spreads through here too. And those are big shoes to fill from the phenomenal Barry Windsor Smith. A lot of people still could not separate Barry Windsor Smith from Conan the Barbarian. I love the Golden Skull story. This is the one by Neil Adams, as a matter of fact. The one issue that is collected in here with Neil Adams doing the artwork. And it's killer. I mean, it fits. It looks gritty. It looks rough. Letter pages are all intact, including Marvel characters through here. That's just the deal that they worked with Marvel Comics. So it's a good thing, right? I mean, technically they They could not be allowed to print the letter pages because it mentions Marvel characters, but there are ads in here. So they were able to work that in. And let me tell you, Big John, when he came in, like, I fell in love with his artwork so much more. I was a big fan of his, of course, Avengers with Roger Stern. Was a big fan of his Wolverine run. I don't think I appreciated Big John until I got older. I was in my, I think, 30s when I really started to appreciate his art style. Then by my 40s, he became one of my favorite artists. So I probably need to go and redo my favorite comic book artist. That video is about 6 years old now, because a lot of it has changed over the years, especially going back and rereading a lot of these classic storylines. Like respecting a lot of these older artists or the classic artists like Gene Colan, for example, but John Buscema, oh my gosh. My point was he draws some really beautiful women. Like, he draws some drop-dead gorgeous women. Women that are half monsters that I was thinking to myself, well, that's not that bad of a way to go. It could be a lot worse. Now, here we have the Savage Sword of Conan stories in here, which is why you get that suggested for mature readers, because it's got a little bit more violence. But the story ends with him and Red Sonja here, and then they're together being chased in issue 43. So it is mapped properly. Like, if the last thing you saw was them together in that Savage Sword of Conan, and then we get to issue 43 and they're together being chased down by bandits, it kind of fits in. So, I mean, there were a lot of thought put into this. So we do have the return of her. That is another character that they've worked out a deal that they can use her in the internal pages of Conan the Barbarian, not her own comic book or that Marvel Premiere comic. And let's go a little forward here with the Wolf Woman right here. Again, John Buscema drawing some gorgeous ladies. Yeah, she might be a werewoman or a wolf woman. Still gorgeous, though. This storyline is the Hour of the Dragon. Now, Hour of the Dragon was a big event that went into Savage Sword of Conan and annuals, but because Giant Size Conan was canceled, and by the way, the reason I know all of this, a few years ago, Marvel released this Conan Hour of the Dragon in the reading order. So there's an introduction talking about how the idea of Hour of the Dragon was supposed to be, what got canceled, and how the story is supposed to be read throughout these comics. And some of the artwork has been colored by Jose Villarrubia. I would love for Titan and Heroic Signatures to reprint that in like a big deluxe edition. But this is where it starts off. Of course, an adaptation. This is another giant-sized Conan right here. So we do have the first 4 giant-sized Conans, which work like an annual. But also some people don't think they're annual. Some people just think they're extra books, extra stories. Which, hey, sure, that works. So let's get all the way to the back here. We're going to be looking at some of the extras. So again, this has the same page count, here we go, as the Marvel version. Nothing is left out. Everything is intact, including all the extras. So we have some house ads, and they tell you, like, Marvel Treasury Edition over there, which were reprints. It's a gorgeous piece by Barry Windsor Smith. Articles in here. The calendar. The pencil artwork by Big John Buscema, the finish art. I love when, in the introduction, Roy Thomas talks about how he would get scans of Big John's artwork and just get excited and know that they were in for something special. And there is something really special about that wonderful team-up between Big John and, of course, Roy Thomas. This includes the reprinted in Conan the Barbarian number 78. This is the placement advertisements would have broken John Buscema's double page spread in half, so he redrew it as a single page splash. And I think I may have mentioned that before. Again, you go from pencil art to finished artwork right here. So you can just see how much the inker or embellisher can add to the art. Gil Kane right here doing some of the covers. And the plot to Giant Size Conan 3. The Conan Saga. This is from the commentary of Conan the Barbarian 31 and annual number 5. Conan Saga 68. These are reprints. And more of those reprints. On the Road of Kings again. From the Chronicles of Conan. Chronicles of Conan were the reprints by Dark Horse Comics. And I want to say I had one of them, and I had the Savage Sword. and I ended up gifting them because I was like, I'm never going to get into Conan, and then the Omnis came. Whew. But they were recolored. Now, let's look at the binding of this book really quick. 856 pages, and there's that beautiful eye. And I wanted to look at the paper stock here, because like I said, it is thick paper stock, thick glossy paper stock. There is minimal bleed through happening, and as I mentioned, this book does have a lot of spread pages, like this story right here, which showcases Conan and his many different adventures. So you can see just the minimal gutter loss that is happening here. And what I want to do is compare it to the original printing, or the Marvel printing rather. And first, the way that it lays over. So I actually think the Donnelly printer lays over better than the printer over here they're using. But the paper stock is definitely thicker than the Donnelly printer. And you can tell by the minimal bleed through happening in these pages. Let's actually go back to the beginning here and look at the difference in the colors. A little more darker over here, a little more vibrant in the Marvel printing. And Conan the Barbarian. This all is the same right here because it's printing the exact same thing. And then, of course, the table of contents. One thing that I've noticed that Titan Heroic Signatures has added, and I'm glad they did, is tell you where the bonus material starts, whereas Marvel just kind of ends, and then you're like, everything else is bonus material. But the introduction is all the same. Yeah, let's get to the first page here. So after the Hyborian map, here we go. So yeah, the colors, you can see him just a little redder than over here. He's a little bit, just tiny little bit lighter, but definitely, including the artwork being shifted down a little bit to cover that, all the copyright stuff that they have in the original comic. They did that in the previous volumes, I noticed. But yeah, it's minimal compared to the bleed through that's happening over here. Not that this is bad, not that this is horrible. There's minimal bleed through, but it's less over here. But that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcon at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this omnibus. In the comments down below, let me know if you're going in completely blind to Conan the Barbarian, or if you've read it before in your youth and you've wanted to recapture that youth by getting some of these omnis from either Marvel and now, of course, Titan Comics and Heroic Signatures, or if you missed any of the original Marvel printings. If you have any questions, leave your questions down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.